Hello, hello, hello. Aurelia Davis coming to you on the Thursday. This week is going by so fast, and I'm going along with it. That's a good thing. Just glad to see everybody. Just hope everybody is doing well. This week was report card pickup for Chicago Public Schools. Elementary schools on yesterday and high schools on today. I remember those times. And when we finally got to this level, when we finally got to this period of the year, this was the last report card pickup, and the next report card handout would be at the end of the school year. So teachers, is you're moving along, you're moving along. Just keep it going, and congratulations to those of you who have made it this far. Congratulations, you just got a little while to go. And speaking of a little while to go, if you have not gotten over to my website, aureliadavis.com, and clicked on the Thrive Retreat, this would be the perfect way to end the school year. The Thrive Retreat will be happening in July 30th through August 4th in Tulum, Mexico. And we're just inviting any and all educational leaders to come out and join us. This is going to be an impactful retreat to the point where we are gathering to get to just relax and just de-stress ourselves, to be rejuvenated in the field of education. And what will take place is you'll be having your meals are included in the price. Beautiful rooms are included in the price. There are going to be some yoga sessions. There are going to be some workshop sessions going on. So a little bit of everything for everybody that's in the field of education. So if you haven't gotten over to my website yet, please go over to the website, aureliadavis.com. Click on the Thrive Retreat and register today. Register today. Register today. Looking forward to seeing you because I'm going to be there. But anyway, talking today, the future of selective enrollment programs in Chicago. I'm not going to speak on this a little because this can be somewhat of a touchy subject. To a certain extent, it can be somewhat of a touchy subject. I have my pros and I have my I have my negatives and my pros, if that makes sense. But back in like the 80s and the 90s, selective enrollment schools were being offered to individual students within the city of Chicago, because what we did discover is that if you attended school on the west side of Chicago, most of your schools were all one culture, African American. If you attended schools on the south side of Chicago, the same thing, mostly African American. If you went to schools on the north side, you got a whole different culture. And then if you went to school on the near north side, you got a different culture. I can only speak about African Americans, because that's who I am. But at the same time, the schools were not, there was not a cultural balance. And when we're talking about segregation and desegregation, it was about desegregating the schools, especially the schools in Chicago. And unfortunately, the neighborhoods just sort of failed the way they failed. When you think about pro-slavery, African Americans came into the city of Chicago and they settled in neighborhoods where they felt comfortable, where they saw other people looking like themselves. So that's how we ended up on the south side. That's how we ended up on the west side. And where we settled, that's where we ended up going to school. I remember the neighborhood where I grew up. It started out as one particular culture, and then by the 50s, it was all mostly African American, and they were buying houses over there. And the plus side of living in that particular, on the west side of Chicago in a particular neighborhood, is that the schools were very close to you. So children were able to walk to the schools that they attended, from elementary schools to upper grade centers to high schools. Every school was in walking distance. I know that because I walked to every school that I attended. I walked to my elementary school. I walked to my upper grade center where I attended 7th and 8th grade. And then, of course, I walked to my high school. And at that particular time, there was a mixture of children. And at the same time, you had the ones that had challenging, that were challenged. In other words, they were not necessarily on grade level or above grade level. And then you had the ones that were scholars that were zooming off the charts. And we were all in the same building. So as the 60s started happening, and of course civil rights was a big part of that, they started looking at the schools in Chicago and knew that there had to be a plan in place to desegregate the schools, So what happened first is they set up a plan for African Americans to go out of their neighborhoods into other schools in different areas of the city. And that worked slowly but surely because there had to be an acceptance of the schools that they were recruiting African Americans to go to. And so I'm reading an article. I understand that Lane Tech over there by the old Riverview was one of the first schools that had selective enrollment. Lane Tech started out as an all boys school, but then when they decided to have selective enrollment, they started including girls. And within that program, they started recruiting African Americans, usually young African American children from the west side of Chicago. Now, at the same time, they did look at scores and see how children were scoring and how they were doing with Iowa scores. I'm just sort of fumbling how they were doing in Iowa scores. In other words, their scores were very, very high. Very, very high. So that was good and not so good at the same time, because what happened is that you were recruiting the brightest and the best out of neighborhoods, African American neighborhoods, which was not fair to the children to the schools that were still there, or the children that were still there. And as time went on, it just got to be more and more and more. And even today, now a child in Chicago can basically go to any school they want to within the city of Chicago. Sometimes busing will be included, but if busing is not included, it's up to that particular parent to get that child to that particular school. Well, that has some negatives. That can be negative and positive. Negative to the point where you're thinking about elementary school children now that are getting up as early as 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning and traveling so many miles to a school that might be on the other side of town. And then in the afternoons, getting back to a school, getting back to their neighborhoods. But at the same time, why were they continuing to go? Well, what ended up happening is most of the funding was going to the selective enrollment schools. So that left basically no funding or resources for the schools in the neighborhood. So that's where my point comes in. CPS is starting to change the whole system, where they're starting to build back up the schools in each neighborhood. And that's the way it was when I attended school. And it was, we had all of the resources. In other words, our school was on the west side. The school on the north side had the same thing we had. And that's what we worked with. And the resources were good. We had music, we had art, we had after school programs. I remember going to social centers and just doing all kinds of things. And we loved it. But the good thing about it is that we were able to go to school in our neighborhood and get the same quality education compared to a child that lived up around Lakeshore Drive. And that's what needs to happen. That's what needs to come back. And there is a plan in place for that to happen. And I just hope it will be tremendous. Now, do I believe that parents should be able to take their children anywhere they want to go to school, where they choose to take them to school? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I'm working with a few schools now. And the principal told me that some of the students that he has are children of students that attended his school. So you have that story about I attended Johnson School, or I attended Edmond School, and I loved it so much that I want my child to go there too. Well, unfortunately, I have moved to the south side of Chicago, but I can still get my child over to the school because I want my child to have that same type of educational environment and learning environment that I had and that I enjoyed. And sometimes it's even to the point where parents will take their children and put them into a culturally enriched school that will help them develop cultural aspects and different things, and to build cultural blocks and bonds where they know exactly who they are, because that's also important. So it is important that a parent has a choice, but that also, what is also as important is that every school that a child, if a school is across the street from a child, then that child has the right to go to that school and get all of the resources that are being offered in every school in the city. That's what I'm saying. So to have the choice to go take your child to any school you want to take them to is one thing, and that's a good thing, because as you have parent choices, that's great. But at the same time, if I decide I want my Johnny to go right across the street, Johnny is going to get just a great education going across the street than if he was to go across town. It's as simple as that. So we're starting to pour. There's a movement now to start giving more into the schools that are in the neighborhoods. Build the schools up that are in the neighborhoods where the children live. This is very, very, very important, because my choices are good, but at the same time, if I choose to go across the street, I should be guaranteed a great education just going across the street. It's very simple, very simple. And so we as leaders and educators, we need to be very aware of these choices and what parents are seeking when they are looking for a school for their child, what parents are seeking, because now it's even to the point now where the schools have report cards online, and you can go and see exactly what the schools are offering. My nephew attended a language school where they taught Japanese and Chinese, and he's in Spanish and just all of the language. It was considered a language academy. So they went there with, having the opportunity to take languages as early as kindergarten, second grade, all the way up to eighth grade. They studied languages in this particular school, which is good. This is good. And then you have other schools, elementary school, and there was elementary school, and then you have other schools that are offering the arts. If you want your child to be engrossed or involved in the arts, music, dance, acting, all of these, then you have the choice and the opportunity to go to that particular school. That's a good choice to have. But at the same time, if you just want your child to get a great basic skills education within the neighborhood where he lives, it's right across the street. Right across the street. And he should have the opportunity to go across the street to get whatever he needs. Wow. It's something to think about. And it's been in place so long, and it has developed all of the bumps and the gaps that became unequal, not equal. In other words, basically the program got to the point where it was so muddled with so many different things that were not good for the students of Chicago, that now they are rethinking the whole thing. And I give the Board of Education congratulations on that, because it does need to be relooked at. This is Aurelia Davids. Like I said before in the beginning, if you have not gone over to my website and looked at and clicked on the Thrive Retreat, do so right now. You would just enjoy what you see. You just enjoy what you see. The Thrive Retreat, AureliaDavids.com, or Thrive Retreat, that's going to take place in July 30th through August 4th in Tulum, Mexico. Click on and see what the offerings are. You're going to enjoy what you see. I'm going to go. Talk to you later. Have a great one now. Bye-bye.